So my name is Dan Delisandri. I am, yeah, cool. Everything's online. That's good. I am delivering the Ableton Live course for Clothcat Studios every Monday at 4 p.m. This is week 2. You can rewatch week 1 under the Ableton playlist. If you go to the Clothcat YouTube channel, you can view everything there. Before I begin, I need to read out a disclaimer. Okay, so if you are a child watching, please make sure that your parents know what you are doing. You will be able to write comments while I'm live and leave comments once the stream is finished. Please do not mention your name, address, phone number or email in these comments. Keep your comments relevant to the sessions and be kind. Do not engage with other people if you do not know them in person. All comments are being monitored for your safety, and any abuse or inappropriate content will be reported and people will be removed from the channel. I'm happy for you to tell me your first name and use the emoji flag to show me which country you're living, but nothing more personal than this. As I'm going along, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Obviously the comments are being monitored, and what I'm going to do at the end of the lesson, I will review these comments and try and answer as many as I can. If you've got a kind of major questions, I'll either include them during the week as part of my top tips. If not, then next week I'll make sure that I reply to those comments on there. So there we go. Oh good, yeah, everything's up and running. That's good to see. So this week we're going to be focusing on using MIDI devices and MIDI instruments and drums within Ableton Live. If you haven't already, then you need to download Ableton. You can currently download a free trial. So if you just go to ableton.com, try Live for free, and then it shows you here, yeah, try Ableton Live for free. You can download it. Because I'm using a Mac, it might come up slightly different if you're using a PC, but yeah, Mac OS. Click download, that'll download, and then yeah, you'll get a free trial for 90 days, which is very, very generous of Ableton at the moment. So once you've downloaded that, load up your software, and it should look something like this. Few people have experienced problems getting the sound into the software as well. We'll be able to hear what they're actually doing. And if you on a Mac, if you go to your preferences here, so Live Preferences, and you should be able to see whatever device it is that you're using for your sound. So at the moment I'm using this MGXU desk, and like a USB desk. Acts as a sound card and allows me to record in as well. If you're just using headphones on your computer, then use your built-in output here, and then you click onto that, and then you can plug your headphones in, or if you've got some little speakers, or if you've got like a USB or like a Firewire audio interface, you should be able to select it from here, and then you can hear your sound from there. If you're on a PC, you need to go to your options, and then it's right at the bottom of the options, you'll see preferences. So yeah, there you go. So this week, yeah, we're using MIDI. That's what we're going to be focusing on. And when you first load up, if I just load up a new live set, it will, I won't save that. It will look something like this: audio, MIDI. So last week we were focusing on using audio, just audio clips and loops, everything like that. This week we are focusing on MIDI. So if you just right click cut, or if you just hit delete on your keyboard, then it will remove those audio channels. So yeah, we're looking at MIDI instruments and devices today. So to explain what MIDI is, it's a word used a lot within music. You might have come across like keyboards, pianos, especially at school, which are like MIDI pianos, MIDI instruments. What it stands for is Musical Instrument Digital Interface, and it's basically, in a nutshell, the electronic language used for electronic musical instruments, computers and audio devices for playing, editing and recording music. So you can use pianos, buttons, launch pads, other devices as well, MPCs, things like that. Have them all plugged into your computer, and whatever you press on your MIDI device will then send a signal to your computer software, and yeah, you can program in your drums and melodies and sounds. So for example here I use an Ableton Push. I've got it plugged in at the moment, so I won't show you that. I've got a couple of these little launch pads as well, and you can pick them up relatively cheaply. I think I got this off eBay secondhand for like £50. You can get the newer ones for around £100, and even if you've got like an older keyboard at home or something like that, older piano, it might even be MIDI enabled, so you can actually use that to play in your sounds and melodies and chords or whatever you're coming up kind of writing. And you can buy some which are combined, so you get some which are like a piano layout with some drum pads on top, which is quite handy to use, so you can do a bit of drumming and then switch over to playing piano, things like that. So that's all good. But today we're just going to be using the letters on the keyboard. The good thing about this software is you can use your actual computer keyboard as a piano, so you don't have to, before you actually kind of invest in buying more hardware and equipment, you can use your computer keyboard, which is quite cool. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. And yeah, so I'll show you how to do that. Right, so we're going to begin with drums. Let's have a look at some drums. So in Ableton, if you look down your browser here, on the left hand side, last week we were looking at like the packs and the folders down here. Today we're just going to be focused on using sounds and drums. So sounds, let me just minimize that. As you can see here, they're categorized: ambient, bass, booms, brass, effects, and so on. So these are all the different kind of synths that come with Ableton. If you buy Ableton Lite or Intro or Standard, it comes with a few less. So this is the kind of full suite. If you buy, or if you kind of install one of the other versions, it might not have as many. It will have a few that you can use, so you can definitely get going making things, but you won't have as many as this probably. And the same with the drum kits. Now I've downloaded a lot of these from the Ableton website and various other places that you can basically, you're given like a pack of samples and it's turned into a drum kit for you, so you can start programming in your beats and sounds, which is pretty cool. So let's start off with drums. So we can select an empty drum rack. So if I just click and drag and drop it onto a MIDI channel, and you'll see down here a kind of grid of 16 boxes appears. So this is where your drum kit is going to be. And what you can do here, you can make your own drum kit. So as I was saying last week, you can download packs and packs of sounds, like individual drum hits. For example, if I just go to my drum kits and hits, I've organised it here, kicks. So I could then drag and drop those drum kits. Oh, 1 second. You won't be able to see that. There we go, you can see that now. Yeah, so you'll see the 16 empty boxes down here, and I can drag and drop kick drums. Let's get a snare on there. Drag and drop that on there. So you can build your own drum kit, which is really, really cool. So it might be a specific kind of sounding drum kit. You might want like an old school 808 style. You might want a more kind of rocky, acoustic sounding drum kit. You can do whatever you like. So yeah, you can put whatever sounds. It doesn't have to be drum sounds. It can be like effect samples, one hits. It can be like spoken word, like single words, for example. Yeah, so you can do that. But what we're going to do today, just to kind of, it's a good way to kind of begin with programming using MIDI, is using one of these preset drum kits on here. So if I click on the top one, and again it works, if you click on one, remember I said last week, when you're on a browser, don't double click, just kind of click on one and it will start giving you a preview. And then if you use your cursor arrows, you can use those on there. So yeah, that's not the actual beat that you will be hearing when you actually drag it across. It just kind of gives you a bit of a preview. This is one that when I do like workshops and things, people seem to like this one. I guess it's kind of quite a cool sound on there. So what we're going to do, let's just pick, I'm just going to pick one of these ones. So let's use the 909, that sounds nice. So yeah, drag and drop it. Although I've got a drum rack in here, it will kind of overwrite it. Drag and drop it there. And then you'll see here, yeah, so you can see all the different drum sounds which are lined up. Kicks, rim, snare, clap, another snare, another kick, closed hi-hat, toms, open hi-hat, etc. You can see them all on there, which is cool. So yeah, to use your actual computer keyboard as a kind of MIDI drum pads or as a piano, you have to click this little piano at the top. Then your A on the actual keyboard, on your computer keyboard, is your kind of bottom left one here. It might be that when you first load it up, you can't hear anything. So below A, you've got Z and X. If I press X, it jumps up an octave, or jumps up 12 notes, I should say. And then X again, and it keeps jumping up, and so on. So just make sure that you kind of press it until you can hear the A on your computer keyboard is your kick drum. And then it kind of works in the same way that a piano is set out. So your A is classed as C1 on a piano. So if you had like a full-size MIDI piano plugged in, it would be like the bottom C, right at the far left. That would be your kick drum. On some MIDI keyboards, there's a kind of smaller versions, so you might have to kind of press the octave down a couple of times, go down a couple of octaves, which takes you down 12 semitones. Don't worry about that for now, until you can kind of hear that kick drum, and that just tells you that you are kind of playing from the bottom left sound on that grid. So we've got A is there, W is the rim, S is the snare, E is your clap, D is your snare. Now R doesn't work because of, if you actually look at a piano, that's how it's kind of set out. So you've got your kind of 3 white notes and then above it 2. That's how it's kind of 2 black notes, and that's how it's set out on the keyboard, on your computer keyboard as well. So yeah, or you can just press them until you find a sound that you like. Next, what you need to do, you need to kind of get a bit creative and trying to come up with a little beat, come up with a little idea, to kind of start your project off, start your track off. A really useful tip is to use your metronome up here. We haven't really looked at the metronome yet. So this is your metronome here, these 2 circles. So if you click on that, it goes yellow. And then if you just start the track off by hitting spacebar or play, you'll hear the metronome. You can change the sound of the metronome. So this one's set to wood, click, or the classic one. So you can kind of turn that on and off. I'm going to stick to the wood one. So I'm going to get that going. So the track is playing, nothing's actually playing, there's nothing in here yet, is there? So I'm just going to write come up with a simple kind of kick and snare beat. It's a bit more broken, I'll keep it a bit more housey actually, so. And this is me just pressing A and D on my computer keyboard. And so on. So I think that sounds okay. If you wanted to slow it down, if you get your tempo number here, and then click and drag down, and then you can change it so it's much slower, or if you want it to go quicker. Alternatively, like a lot of other things, and if you just click on it once, you can use the computer's keyboard's cursors to go up and down. and it changes the tempo. So I'm just going to stick to 120, and then I'm going to record my beat into the software here. So in order to record, actually one other thing to point out, in order to hear the drum kit, at the moment I'm pressing A, you can't hear anything because the track isn't armed. So you need to hit this little rectangle at the bottom, make sure it's armed, and now you can hear it. And the same would be when we load up a different device. You can, if you control click, you can have two things armed at the same time. I've done it a few times on performances where you've kind of layered up 2 or 3 sounds on your keyboard, and you can play them together, which is quite cool. But for this, we're just going to be using the one that's going to be arming one track. So now, there's a little circle here, because that's armed, that has now turned into a circle, which means that I can record. This is like your little record button in the session view. Another thing to point out is there's a count in. So if you have it on none, as soon as you hit record, it starts recording. So you haven't really got any time to compose yourself. So if you just click on the little drop down here next to the metronome, I just use 1 bar, I think 1 bar is enough. Click that, and then you get 4 beats. Because we're in 4/4, you get 4 beats, and then it starts recording until you press spacebar or you hit stop, and then it will end the recording. So let's give that a go. Got my kick and snare, I'm ready. Okay. Cool. Okay, so I've recorded my kick and snare. Now this is where we do double click within the software. Is you can double click above and it will show you what's the samples, the drum kit underneath, the settings on here that we can change. If you click on the actual clip itself, and that shows you the MIDI. So this is what I actually played just now into the software. This is your kind of grid. So that's the kick drum at the bottom, which I was playing in, and then you got your snare up there. So those are just those 2 notes, those 2 keys that I was playing there. So if we listen back to it, okay. So with a metronome off, I'm gonna turn the metronome off, and let's have a little listen to it again. So you can hear even there, there's a few notes which are a little bit off. So it's not perfect. So when it comes to dance music in particular, I would say, most producers would quantize their notes so that they are spot on. So they kind of fix to this grid here. At the moment, the quantize, if I just right click, the quantize settings. So this menu here, at the moment, the grid that we are on, where we're on eighths, it's all set to eighths, or a quarter, sorry, an eighth of a note. So just to kind of explain what this means, because we're in 4/4, there's 4 beats in a bar, okay? So in terms of musical theory knowledge, in terms that we use, a quarter, so this is like a quarter of a bar, is equivalent to a crotchet. This is an eighth of a bar, that's equivalent to a quaver, and a 16th of a bar is like a semi-quaver. I'm sure a lot of you have heard those words before. I tend to just use, when I'm the grid, in eighths or 16s, so depending on what rhythms and what kind of sounds I'm recording in. So if it was kind of faster drums, I'd probably stick it to 16s. If it was kind of quite steady drums like I've just done, stick to 8s. So at the moment we're on 8s, that's ticked. Then you go to your quantize settings. At the moment it's set to the current grid, so in eighths. So we can change it to, or you can change it, so you can have the grid set to eighths, or you can have it set to 16ths or quarters, depending. So at the moment, let's just do it on the current grid, because we're in eighths. Click OK, and then if you watch the MIDI notes underneath, watch what happens to them. So you see they all just kind of shifted. And it shifts over to the nearest kind of line here in that grid. So now, if we listen to it, there we go. Because the loop here is activated, it will just keep looping round. If I deactivate it, play from the beginning here. Cool, and that's stopped now because the loop's not activated. So if I reactivate the loop, hit the play button, yeah, there you go. So that's just looping round and round until you tell it to stop, or you just stop it. Okay, so we've got our kick and snare, which are quantized, so they're nice and in time. Quantizing, most people that I know, producers, do quantize their kind of kicks and snares and a lot of other drums. When it comes to kind of percussion, the kind of higher frequency drum sounds like your hi-hats and other similar sounds, some people might not want to quantize them, or even your kicks and snares, especially I'd say within the kind of lo-fi hip-hop kind of sound, where you want things to have a bit of a swing, not be perfectly in time, kind of have more of a human feel. So yeah, other producers I know don't use quantize at all. So their drumming, finger drumming's really, really tight. They can record really, really good beats into the software. So yeah, but I personally like to quantize my drums, and then I might add some swing to certain parts of it. This will be a bit later that I'll be showing you how to kind of extract grooves from other percussion, other drum loops, and then you can apply that to your own drum loops, which is quite a cool feature within the software. So we've got our kick and snare, and next we're going to duplicate this little clip here. So, and then we're going to add to it. So we duplicate, so we've got our kick and snare. Underneath it's an exact copy of it, but this time what I'm going to do, I'm going to overdub and add some hi-hats, some other percussion over the top of it as well. So my hi-hat, if that's what that's another kick. There we go, we've got a hi-hat there. So what's that? Closed hi-hat, another closed hi-hat, and an open hi-hat. So we'll use all three of those. So to start overdubbing, we'll make sure that this is ready to go, and then you literally have to press this little circle over here. Something I haven't shown you yet, actually, this is a little info view. So if you click this little box down here, and then you kind of hover over things, it tells you what they are. So if we hover over this here, your session record button. There's another one over here, which is for your arrangement overdub, but this is used for overdubbing in this view here. Okay, so make sure that this is activated. Oh, not ready yet. Just get my fingers on the right notes. So I'm just going to do some open hi-hats now. Actually, before I commit, so I'm just going to play them first. There's the kick and snare. Might use two. Something like that. Let's just use the one for now. So here we go. So we're going to overdub this next loop. And again, they haven't been quantized, so I'm just going to do a quick right click, quantize, and you saw them shift there, and now they're nice and in time. So let's just take that off. Let's get some open hi-hat. See that little gap there? I'm just going to put an open hi-hat in there. quickly quantize that. And there is a shortcut for quantizing, which is Command and U or Control and U on PC. Cool, so now I've got that. I'm going to right click again, Command and D. So I'm actually going to do it as a shortcut. Control and D on a PC or Command and D on a Mac creates another version. Do that underneath. Let's add, what can we add now? Clap. Let's put a clap on every other snare drum. Right, here we go. Oh, I missed it that time. Let's do it again. And quickly quantize it. Did you quantize? There we go. So now we've got our little clips here. We've got 3 versions of it. On the next one I'm going to duplicate actually. I'm going to take out the kick, take out the kick drum. So now we've got a version which is kick and snare, and then kick, snare and a hi-hat with an open hi-hat, and then we've got a clap, and then we've got one without a kick. So this is kind of the beginnings of building up the structure of your track. So we'll start off with kick and snare. And then the hi-hat. You notice I pressed that. I didn't press it bang on the beat, pressed it just before. So it kind of takes over. You see this little clock here that's going round? You kind of want to press the next play button just before it gets to 12. So a little breakdown. And then back to all of it. Cool. There we go. So we've got a basic beat, basic kind of disco-y, housey, 4 to the floor beat there. So next, we're going to add some other sounds. So we've got our drum kit here, which is cool. Now we've got all these other sounds here. So the kind of the rhythmic section of your track generally is your drums and bass. That's what kind of gets the kind of groove going, you could say. So now we've got all these drums down here, all these bass sounds down here. And again, with a drum kit and the clips, audio clips, click on one, and before you commit, you can preview the sound. Using the arrows, it's going down. So pretty cool. Let's use one that I've been using before. Okay, let's try that one. So drag and drop that over. That goes into my MIDI channel here. And maximize it so you can see a bit more. And again, I'm going to use my computer keyboard. So if I press A for C1, that sounds all right there. So the idea is that you can kind of write a little bass groove to complement the house track. So let's something like that. That sounds pretty cool. So yeah, get your beat going. You might want to put your metronome on again if that helped. Now you've got your beat, because that's all quantized, that's kind of acting as the metronome, keeping you in time. So yeah, let's get that beat going. Something like that, yeah. Sounds alright. So now, yeah, make sure that's activated, and then we're good to go. So because I've got the count in here, I'll get 1 bar, 4 beats, and then it starts recording. Right, let's go. Stop. Okay. Double click on there, and then you can see here, this is my amazing bass line that I have just recorded in. So yeah, they look a bit small, don't they? Quite hard to see. It's quite hard to edit MIDI notes when they're like this sort of size. So you see this little magnifying glass has appeared. There's two ways of zooming in. You can just kind of hover here, left click, drag to the right, and there you go. You can kind of see everything that I played in there. You can see it's grayed out into 8 bars. There you go. So you see there, it's sounds a bit off, doesn't it? Also, I like to have my sounds kind of nice and tight, everything kind of in time. So let's put that in time. So right click, quantize, just check what the settings are. It's in current grid, which is on 8ths. Let's see how that goes. So that's not what I played in. So I'm going to undo that. Command and Z or Control Z. Very, very useful shortcut. Probably one of the most commonly used ones. I'm going to go to the quantize settings and change it to 16ths. Because some of those notes fell either side of that grid. So not in 8ths, they're more in 16ths. Click OK. There's a bit of syncopated kind of bass there. So that one was a little bit off. That's not what I played in. Well, that's not how I wanted it to sound. So here, let's move these notes over. So you can actually just click it and then use your cursor keys, and there you go. Alternatively, you can pick it up and move it around, and you see it kind of snaps to the bar lines. I can see that one's off as well. I actually haven't got the grid set on 16, so that's not going to work. Oh, that's not quite right. I'm hoping this one will be right now. Let's just get it going from there. That one was a little bit off as well. Oops. Zoom in a bit more so we can see that they're the same. Let's move that over to there. Yeah. Nice. There we go. There we got our bass line. You can, if I just quickly show you on here, if you're not great at playing things in, you can draw it in as well. So where's the bottom note? There we go. Zoom in out. So you can just double click and write in your bass or your MIDI notes this way. That doesn't sound right. Let's just do one every other one. There we go. One there, one there. So let's keep that in there. That's right, actually. Now we've got two variations of our bass line. And back to this one. Not bad. Oh, see that's clipping a little bit. See it's obviously a little bit loud. Turn these down. Definitely don't want that going into the red. Cool. Okay, so we've got drums and bass, and in this little section, so let's just move that down there. So let's kind of hear what that sounds like together. I'm just going to actually quickly duplicate that bass line there, so then it appears there. So now we've got kick and snare, and then kick, snare, hi-hats with a bass line. bring the next one in. Ooh. There you go, you get the idea. So yeah, even with a couple of sounds, sounds pretty cool, I think. So what we can do next, we need to layer it with some more sounds. So let's put something on, some sort of synth lead. And I spoke a lot about this last week, about layers. So a lot of, well, all music is basically just layers and layers and layers of different sounds. Some are low bass, some are mid, some are high frequency. But combined, that's what makes music really. So what we can do here, and I do this a lot, kind of come up with a bass line or an idea or chords or something like that, and then here we've got it in our bass, but we're going to duplicate this whole channel here. So press duplicate and it creates another version of it here. This time we're not going to keep the same sound. I want to change that sound, so we can change the actual kind of patch that's on here, the sound patch. So I want it to be like a synth lead patch instead. So let's preview some sounds. Let's think what might sound quite cool with it. Where's that one? Let's try that one there. So I'm just going to drag and drop that onto there. And let's hear what they sound like together now. So you hear that sounds a bit weird, a bit muddy. Partly because this is bass notes. So these are kind of lower down on the piano or on the keyboard. Whereas this synth kind of I've put in here, it is more, it works better, kind of more mid-ranged, I would say, or high frequency, high register notes. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to have to alter or transpose all of these notes up a couple of octaves. So you see at the moment we're in C1, and I want to move them up to C2, maybe actually C3. I think it might even sound better up there. So what we have to do, we have to kind of shift these up, and this is a quick way that I've always done this. You highlight them all, and then you need to shift them up by 12 semitones. So if you look at a keyboard or a piano, a semitone is basically the next note up. A tone is 2 notes up. So if you kind of go up, and if you go from kind of, if you count the number of notes on a piano, obviously there is a keyboard course for the Get Your Act Together project. Obviously watch that if you want to learn more about keyboards. But if you kind of want to transpose everything up by an octave, you have to move it up by 12 semitones. So I've got this all highlighted, and I'm just going to press up on my computer keyboard 12 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's shifted up 1 octave. Let's have a little listen to what that's like. Let's go a bit more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Doesn't sound that great, that sound. Let's try that one instead. Don't worry about all this at the bottom. That's for another day, for another lesson. So let's copy that up there. That sounded good there. Let's just delete that underneath. But what I also do, I don't want it to play exactly all the same notes that the bass does. So I'm just going to have it play some of the notes. Let's have it let's just have it those first 4 notes. So I'm just going to highlight these, draw a box around it, delete, highlight them again, delete, highlight again, delete, highlight again and delete. So now I've just got these ones here. So let's hear what does that sound like? It's a bit loud. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate that again. This time let's use, delete those, delete that. Let's use that synth sound there. This time, and I've done this a lot in other productions, instead of deleting this bar, I'm going to delete, so instead of keeping that first bar, I'm going to delete the first bar. So we kind of have one synth playing the first half of a bass, and then the second synth playing the second half of a bass. There we go, delete that, delete that. So now we've got, again that's quite low, so let's go up 24 semitones, so 2 octaves up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yeah, that's kind of layering, a bit of layering there. So we've got our kicks, so our drum kit, bass, and 2 synths. Kind of layered up from what the bass line was doing. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a good way of doing it, really. So yeah, that's kind of how you kind of record in your MIDI sounds using a computer keyboard in this view, in this session view here. Let's just quickly chuck all of this over into the arrangement view. So we can, last week I showed you that you can record it in. Actually, let's try it again. Let's just do that again. So you start from the top, hit your master at the beginning, just get that kind of armed, get that ready. We don't need to have that armed. And then hit record. And I'm going to do everything in 8-bar blocks. Like I said last time, do everything in 8 bars is the kind of structure that a lot of dance music follows. So blocks and blocks of 8 bars. And obviously being there 4 beats in a bar and then 8 lots of 4 makes a kind of a phrase, you could say, or a block, I call it. So we're going to hit record, and we're going to record our little ideas in here. And then the next one. And the next one. Just quickly tab it, you'll see that everything's being recorded into the arrangement view as I play it along. And so on. So now, I can show you over here. Let's click this, so we can say, let's say, full view, and then you can see these are all the different MIDI parts here that we've recorded in. I'm going to zoom in, that's just gone over a little bit. I'm just going to snap that to the bar, and then that allows me to kind of copy, so I can kind of copy all of this. If you kind of press shift, I click the first one, shift at the bottom highlights them all, and then you can right click, copy, go over to here, right click, paste, and then let's say for example I didn't want that to come in yet, take that out, copy, paste it at the end, and then you can start building up a structure. And already that's up to like a minute and a half, over a minute and a half. But what we can do, now we're in this view, like I said, I kind of do a lot of my creating in this view and then record it into this view, and then once I'm kind of finished with this view here, I just carry on over into this view here, into the arrangement view. So what we can do, we can overdub some of the drums You don't want to kind of have to go back and redo it and then bring it back in here again. We can overdub the drums and the other sounds in this view as well. So what's quite good is, yeah, you can change it up a little bit into this view. So in this section here, I think let's add, what can we add? Make sure that's armed so we can hear it. Some toms. Let's just try some toms in there. So let's hear before you kind of commit. So what is quite handy, let's put a loop on it. So before you commit, let's have a little jam with it first, and then you can record over the top of it. Didn't loop then. There we go. Now we've got a loop. Just to kind of get it looping, it's quite handy to kind of just have it running over and over and over until you ready to kind of record it in. Right, so this time you can hit this little cross and it's going to overdub. Sorry, if you hit record as well, that helps. And then you hit that. Oops, didn't mean to do that. To stop it, yeah, and then you'll see the notes here, and then you can edit them in here. So these are the toms that I added in. Let's do a quick cheeky quantize at 16ths. There you go, it's just shifted those. So we could do the same with the bass as well. Let's try something. So to go an octave on a keyboard, A is kind of your C1, and then K has gone up one octave. Let's try the overdub on the bass line as well then. Okay, so just hit record. Let's do that Command and Z. Yeah, let's try that. And so on, you get the idea. Probably won't keep that. I liked it just having that kind of single note there. So that sounded pretty cool there. Okay, so yeah, we recorded some drums in, some bass, some synths, and just to kind of keep things a bit tidier. You see that kind of, that's called the same thing. That's obviously not bass housey anymore. So if you right click, rename, and we can call that synth 1. And then here, right click, rename, synth 2. There we go. So now we're kind of done with this here. So yeah, this is just kind of giving you an overview of MIDI, input in MIDI using your computer keyboard. It's much better using an actual piano or some drum pads or like a launch pad, something like that. You can pick them up pretty cheap. Like I said at the beginning, I got mine for like £50. You might be able to get them even cheaper on eBay or other places. Obviously there are other places. And yeah, you can also map a lot of another kind of section of MIDI. So it says MIDI up here. You can kind of map all these buttons, everything you see on here, to your devices. So if you've got kind of knobs and buttons and pots and things that you can twist on your MIDI stuff, then you can kind of assign those to certain things. So you can kind of have it, maybe your faders or some effects that you might have put on there, you can map the MIDI instruments to that, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I think that's all I've got to say about using MIDI for now. During this week I'll be posting up a top tip video, which is also going to be linked to MIDI. So it's all about how you can extract grooves from an audio loop. So for example, a drum beat. If you hear like a drum beat that you like, you can then extract the MIDI from that audio loop, and then you can make your own drum kit, your drum beat using that. So that's quite a cool little technique that a lot of producers use. I use a lot as well. So I'll be showing that in a few days' time. I'll be posting up a new video all about that. So yeah, and I'll also be posting about what I'm going to be doing next week. Okay, so I'm just going to be checking some of these questions now. Yeah, so there's one question here about copying a whole bar. Yeah, you can do that. So say for example, within the MIDI, so we've got the 8 bars here. So we could just highlight that section there. And then if you press Command and C or right click and go copy, actually on the note, you need to click on the note if you're going to do that. Right click. What is Command and C or Control C or copy? And then in the next bit, here we go. So you can just do Control and V, and it will copy that bar across. So say for example you wanted that little bit repeated here. Oops. Make sure you paste it into the right section. Why is it not going on there? Zoom in a bit further. Anyway, what I highlighted here wasn't a whole bar. I kind of just highlight. If you go over a little bit or under a little bit, it just copies that section. So you make sure you highlight the whole bar. Make sure you put your line there. There you go. Now it's put it at the beginning. We can go there. There we go. And then Command and D. So let's just delete all of that. Then Command and D will allow you to kind of duplicate it across the page, which is quite handy. Alternatively, it doesn't have to be eight bars. You can say so it's just 1. So now the loop here is just like a 1 bar loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that repeats. You can have it 2, 4. Try and do it multiples of 2s and 4s, I would say. That's the best way to do that. You can use Simpler as a MIDI device. This is something which I'm going to be focusing on in the next couple of weeks, especially when you look at kind of sampling and creating your own, kind of making your own synths and plugins and sounds. Simpler, if you go to your instruments, is down here, and you can, so it is a MIDI device, so we can chuck samples on there. Let's go back to any of these using the Simpler. Yeah, these are using the Simpler as well down here. So a lot of the sounds that you'll find on here tend to be made up from a Simpler or like an analog. Basically a kind of sound producers, you could say. So one's like a Simpler, which is sampler as well, which is slightly different. And then the analog, and the other ones are, a lot of them are kind of synthesis based devices, and yeah, we'll be focusing on synthesis at a later date as well. Yeah, thanks Seth, nice one for that. Thanks for your comments. So yeah, I think that's about it for this week. Feel free to rewatch this video, stay in touch, and if you've got any other questions, here's my email address, my website if you want to check that out. Function is one of the events that I run in Leeds with a few friends of mine. So big up to you guys. Cyclic is my producer name with my mate Rick. So yeah, please check out these pages, like our pages, stay up to date with music. And then for the Get Your Act Together project, these are the other courses that are running this week. So Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, Friday. Tomorrow you've got singing and songwriting, and then you've got guitar, drumming, and then keyboard and production. But yeah, same time next week, 4 p.m. I'll be showing you something else, and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel for Clothcat, and then you'll get notifications when these lessons go live, and then when our other videos are being uploaded. Okay, so yeah, thanks for watching. Take care.